2 of the petition, as well as paragraphs 1, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4 in paragraph 102 of the petition, and thereafter dismiss the petition limiting for being academic and being an abuse. The second and third respondents' motion filed on the 13th of May 2023 sought for the following. 1. Order striking out paragraphs 9, 52, 55, 60, 66, 73, 75, 78, 92, 95, 96, and 97 of the petition to be vague, imprecise, generic. 2. Order striking out paragraphs 80 to 82, 84 to 98 for failure to disclose facts to support the ground that the second and third respondents did not score majority of votes. 3. Order striking out paragraphs 80 to 82, 84 to 98, and failure to score 25% of the FCT, which cannot be placed as the ground for failure to score majority of votes. The fourth respondent, on the other hand, filed motion dated 8th of May 2023, seeking for the following. And striking out this petition for being incompetent and in gross violation of paragraph 4, sub 1, sub D, sub 2, sub 7 of the first step to the Electoral Act 2022. Order of this honorable court striking out grounds 2 of the petition and all associated facts contained in paragraph 20, 2, 33, 78 of the petition for being incompetent. 3. Order of this honorable court striking out paragraphs 2, 20, Roman 2, 33 to 78 of the petition for not being in support of any valid ground. 4. Order of this honorable court striking out paragraphs 21 to 27, 29 to 100 of the petition for being non-specific, lacking in clarity, generic, nebulous, vague, speculative, and gold digging, in contravention of the first step to the Electoral Act. In the above applications, all the respondents relied on the provisions of paragraph 4, sub 1, sub D, and sub 2 of the first step to the Electoral Act, and variously argued that the paragraphs of the petition which they have listed are liable to be struck out for being vague, generic, imprecise, and nebulous. So argued they relied on several cases which are cited here. By contrast, the petitioners have submitted that the respondents' objection in the listed paragraphs of the petition are not vague, nebulous, because the petition, the argument that the petition are vague, paragraphs of the petition are vague and nebulous is defeated because the petitioners have indicated in the petition that they shall be relying on spreadsheets, on forensics like expert evidence to prove the avowed facts. Petitioners have particularly argued that in paragraph 61, 65, 67, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 83, and 100 they have pleaded the said spreadsheets of forensic reports by incorporation or reference, and that this means that the said documents have not only been incorporated but have been sufficiently pleaded. On this point, the petitioners cited several cases which are reproduced. Petitioners further argued that the facts in Belgore and Ane, and Ipiazu and Oti, Ogu and Ekwere Manu, Ojukwu and Eradua, PDP and INEC and others in Sudan and Uwe, and all other cases cited by the respondents are not the same with the facts of this petition, because documents were never pleaded by reference or incorporation in those cases. Additionally, petitioners have relied on paragraph 72, first statement to the Electoral Act 2022, and argue that the respondents have joined issues with the petitioners on those paragraphs. Having failed to seek for further particulars, they must be taken to account as to the same paragraph. They relied on some cases which are in place. Now, resolution. I've carefully considered the submissions of the parties and the judicial authorities cited. It is right that adversarial civil litigation is basically fought on pleadings. It is the foundation of the parties' respective cases. The general principle of law is that such pleadings must sufficiently and comprehensively set out material facts so as to ascertain with certainty and clarity the matters or issues in dispute between the parties. This is because the purpose of pleadings is to give adequate notice to the adversary of the case is to it and to afford him the opportunity to properly respond to such case. Its aim is to bring to the knowledge of the opposite side and the court all the essential facts. It is therefore safeguard against elements should be more namely Cain, Odom, others versus PeterObi and others, Al-Hassan and another was special citations given. The requirements of pleadings in election petitions are primarily provided in paragraph 4 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2020. Specifically, paragraph 4 sub 1 sub D mandates that, and I quote, an election petition shall state clearly the facts of the election petition and the grounds on which the petition is based and the beliefs held by the petitioner, unquote. Subparagraph 2 of the same paragraph further provides that, and I quote, the election petition shall be divided into paragraphs, each of which shall be confined to a distinct issue or major facts of the election petition, and every paragraph shall be numbered consecutively. In addition to the provisions of paragraph 4 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act, paragraph 54 of the same schedule to the Act has made applicable to election petitions the rules of procedure in the Federal High Court of 2019, subject to such modifications as would bring say into conformity with the provisions of the Act. By Order 13, Rule 4 of the Federal High Court Civil Procedure Rules 2019, every party to an election petition shall ensure that arguments in their pleadings, and I quote, contained in a summary form the material facts on which the party pleading relies for its claim or defense, as the case may be, but not the evidence by which they are to be proved, and shall, when necessary, be divided into paragraphs and numbered consecutively. By subparagraph 4 of that rule, such facts contained in the pleading must, and I quote again, be alleged positively, precisely, and distinctly, and as briefly as is consistent with the clear statement. The aforementioned provisions contained the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022, as well as the Federal High Court's Rules 2019, state the mandatory requirements of pleadings in election petitions. The requirements for clarity and precision of fact required by paragraph 4 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act means that arguments must not be vague, ambiguous, or unclear, leaving room for speculation or conjecture, while the requirements of distinctiveness means that each argument must contain a clearly understandable allegation, and there should be no confusion as to the linkages between facts contained in the argument's speech and ascertaining the allegations being made in it. In particular, paragraph 4 sub 1 sub D, relating to the facts of the petition, the grounds on which it is based, and the relief sought by the petitioner have been severally considered and interpreted by the appellate court. In Belgorian Ahmed Supra, the complaint against the arguments in the petition was that they were unspecific, generic, speculative, vague, unreferable, omnibus, and general in terms. In that case, the apex court specifically held as follows, and I quote, pleadings in an action are the written statements of the parties wherein they show summary of the material facts on which each relied in proof of his claim or his defense, as the case may be, and by means of which the real matters in controversy between the parties and to be adjudicated upon are clearly identified. Although only material facts are required to be pleaded and in a summary form, they must nevertheless be sufficiently specific and comprehensive to elicit the necessary answers from the opponent. They must contain such details as to eliminate any element of surprise to the opposing party. In this case, where the dispute involves the election in as many as 895 polling units, the pleading in the petition, which alleged electoral malpractices, non-compliance, and or offences in, quote, some polling units, many polling units, most polling units, or several polling units, cannot be said to have met the requirements of pleadings as stipulated in paragraph 4 sub 1 sub D of the first schedule to the Electoral Act, and or order 13 in 4 sub 1, 5, 6, and sub 1 of the Federal High Court Civil Procedure Rules, unquote. Indeed, in PeterObi and INEC, the apex court was categorical when it held thus, and I quote, on whether the affected paragraphs were rightly struck out. I have read the affected paragraphs and found that they relate to allegations of non-voting in several polling units, disruption of election, non-conclusion of election, thumbprinting of ballot papers, falsification of election results, widespread disruption, irregularities, and malpractices, without providing particulars or the polling units where the alleged malpractices took place. The lower court was therefore right when it held as follows. above the paragraphs above, in my view, are too generic, vague, lacking in any particulars, and they are not tied specifically to any particular polling unit or any particular number of people who are alleged to be disenfranchised. The fact that a party can file further particulars or deny the reply, the government's in the pleading, must not be general. It must be specific as to facts. It is settled law that a petitioner's obligation to plead particulars of fraud or falsification without which the allegation is non-starter. I have nothing to add to this statement of law as advanced above and adopted as unquote. Indeed, on the provision of paragraph 17 sub 1 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act relating to further particulars, the Apex Court held in PDP versus ID Supra that, and I quote, an application for an order for further particulars is merely a shield in the hand of the party who so desires, and not a sword to be used by a party whose pleading is grossly inadequate, insufficient, and devoid of necessary particulars as the appellant's issue must be established. Unquote. A sober consideration of the decision of the Supreme Court in relation to the requirements of pleadings in paragraph 4 sub 1 sub D of the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022. On the one hand, and the decisions of the Supreme Court on the provision of paragraph 17 sub 1 and sub 2 of the first schedule the Electoral Act 2022 relating to further particulars on the other hand shows that whilst in cases such as Abubakar versus Karadwa and Onkugadi versus Sule, the Supreme Court had held that a respondent who complains of vagueness of arguments in an election should avail himself of the provision of paragraph 17 sub 1, the first schedule to the Electoral Act, to seek for further particulars upon the direction of the tribunal or court. The decisions of the Apex Court, especially the PDP, INEC, Belgore and Hamid, have specifically that where arguments in the petition are grossly imprecise and generic, such arguments will be incompetent, liable to be struck out. So also on this PPR. It is therefore clear that the state of the law, as could be deduced from the various decisions of the Apex Court, is that the provision for further particulars, as stated in paragraph 17.1, first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022, will only come into play where the petition itself contains material or necessary particulars. In other words, paragraph 17 sub 1 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022 does not bar a respondent from applying under paragraph 4 sub 7 of the first schedule to strike out arguments in the petition which are grossly inadequate, insufficient, devoid of material or necessary particulars. This is because the operational words of paragraph 17 sub 1 is further particulars, and this means there must be some material particulars already pleaded in the petition before further particulars can be sought by the respondent. As born from the Apex Court decision in Belgore Ahmed, PDP, INEC, and Ipiazo Moti, the law is clearly settled by specifying the particulars of polling units or places where irregularities are alleged to have occurred are material particulars in an election petition. Affirmations in an election petition which allege irregularities are malpractices but fail to specify the polling units or places where the irregularities or malpractices occur and bereft of material particulars, and such arguments are incompetent and liable to be struck. As specifically stated in PDP and INEC, the petitioner who has failed to state such material particulars cannot invoke the provision related to further particulars as a sword against the respondent in order to cure the incompetence of such argument. With respect, it is a misconceived argument on the part of the senior counsel for the petitioners to state that the latter decision of the Apex Court in Onkugado and Sule Supra, which relates to further particulars under paragraph 17.1 of the first schedule, has departed the specific decisions of the Apex Court in Belgore Ahmed, PDP, INEC, Ipiazo and several others of the mandatory requirements for stating material facts as provided in paragraph 4.1 first schedule, same first schedule to the Electoral Act. Contrary to the contention of the petitioners, the decision of the Supreme Court in Onkugado and Sule Supra has merely reiterated the legal position relating to further particulars as provided in paragraph 17 sub 1 first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022. It has not departed from the above specific decisions of the Apex Court on the materiality and of specifying in an election petition the polling units or places where irregularities and malpractices are alleged to have occurred. Now, a look at arguments in the petitioner's petition shows that the petitioners have only alleged various irregularities and malpractices, but failed to specify the particular polling units or specific places where the alleged irregularities and malpractices occur. For instance, paragraph 9 of the petition, where the petitioners award that, and I quote, in appropriate cases, these agents raise complaints about anomalies where they occur and reported such complaints to the designated officers of the second respondent and the first respondent, unquote. The petitioners failed to specify the anomalies, the places where the anomalies occur, the agents who complained, and the designated officers of the second petitioner and the first respondent to whom the complaints were made. In paragraph 60 and 61 of the petition, where the petitioners allege that the first respondent, and I quote, suppressed the actual scores obtained by the petitioners by deliberately uploading log from ECHAs on the IRF in 18,088 polling units. The petitioners did not specify the polling units, but only stated that they will rely on a spreadsheet containing the polling units codes and details of the 18,088 polling units, as well as authentic results in the said polling units. In paragraph 66 and 67, where the petitioners allege that the first respondent embarked on, and I quote, massive misrepresentation and manipulation by uploading fictitious results in polling units where there were no elections, unquote. They did not specify the polling units where they allege there were no elections. Incorrect results that were uploaded, which are the correct results. Again, in paragraph 68-71, where the petitioners allege that the scores obtained by them were, and I quote, unlawfully reduced and added by the first respondent to the scores of the second respondent, unquote. They failed to state their scores that were reduced and added to that of the second respondent by the first respondent, and the figures that shows that the first petitioners won the election. In paragraph 72, 73, 76 to 78, where the petitioners allege overvoting, they merely stated that they will, and I quote, rely on the forensic reports of the election materials showing that the votes cast in the polling units in Ekiti State, Oyo State, Ondo State, State, Osun State, Kano State, Yobe, and Niger States exceeded the number of votes accredited on the beavers in those states. Petitioners failed to specify the polling units in those states where the overvoting occurred, the number of votes affected, the margin of lead, which they claimed that the voters who ought to legitimately vote in those polling units. In paragraph 73 of the petition, petitioners only stated that they will, and I quote, show that in the computation and declaration of the results of the election, based on uploaded results, the votes recorded for the second respondent did not comply with the legitimate process of computation of the result and disfavored the petitioners, unquote. In Rivers, Lagos, Taraba, Benue, Adamawa, Imo, Bauchi, Borno, Kaduna, and Plateau, and other states of the federation. Petitioners neither specified the uploaded results nor the legally encoded second respondents and how they were disfavored. In paragraph 83 of the petition, where the petitioners claim that the first respondents scored the majority of lawful votes cast at the election, they did not state the majority of lawful votes they claim to have scored, especially as elections and the determination of who won is about figures. In paragraph 99 of the petition, where the petitioners say they will rely on from ECHAs to establish that substantial votes were unlawfully credited to the second respondent, they failed to state the figures of the unlawful votes credited to the second. In the petition, the petitioners merely made generic allegations of various irregularities and malpractices against the respondents without specifying the polling units, collation centers, or specific places where alleged irregularities and malpractices occur. Rather, petitioners only stated that they will rely on spreadsheets, inspection reports, and forensic like expert analysis. They say they have incorporated in the petition by reference. But none of the spreadsheets, inspection report, and forensics like expert analysis was attached and served along with the petition on the respondents. Rather, they were only listed as items 35 or 36 in the list of documents to be relied upon by the petitioners. It is only in paragraph 62 and 64 of the petition where the petitioners allege that the first respondents suppressed the lawful votes of the petitioners and inflated the votes of the second and fourth respondents to Rivers and Benue states. That the petitioners gave figures of the vote, where the petitioners gave figures of the votes suppressed for the petitioners and those inflated for the second and fourth respondents, and also stated that they claimed to be the actual figures, or what they claimed to be the actual figures scored by them and by the second and fourth respondent. But all other paragraphs of the petition where irregularities and malpractices were alleged are bereft of any material details, polling units or places where they were alleged to have taken place, or the figures of votes alleged to have been suppressed, inflated, or inflated. It is also pertinent to observe that in paragraph 79 of the petition, where the petitioners alleged corrupt practices, they merely stated that they are repeating their pleadings in support of the grounds of non-compliance to be in support of their allegation of corrupt practices. It should be noted, however, that not every ground of non-compliance will amount to corrupt practice. In fact, the standard of proof of non-compliance differs from that of corrupt practice, while standard of non-compliance with the balance of probabilities, that of corrupt practice is beyond reasonable doubt. See PDP and Mohammed Wamako, Board of Customs and Excise as alleged crime barrow, citation on the road. It is instructive that in paragraphs 3.2, 3.21 of their submission, in opposition to first respondent's objection, petitioners appear to have considered that in the affirmation of the petition, they have not specified the particular polling units where the alleged irregularities and malpractices occurred, or specify the figures of the votes or scores which they alleged have been suppressed, deflated, or inflated. Rather, they stated that the details of the polling units are contained in spreadsheets and forensic analysis reports which they have incorporated and made part of the pleadings by reference. See particularly in this paragraph 67 of the petition. Petitioners further argued that since the respondents have failed to apply the further particulars under paragraph 17.1 and 2 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act, they are deemed to have understood those arguments. However, by paragraph 15 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022, where the petitioner claims, and I quote, that he had the highest number of valid votes cast at the election, the party defending the election or the return at the election shall set out clearly in his reply particulars of the votes, if any, which he objects to, and the reasons for his objection against such votes, showing how he intends to prove the hearing that the petitioner is not entitled to succeed. Unquote. This provision presupposes that the petitioner has a first duty to state clearly in his petition the particulars of such votes, in respect of which he claims to have scored the highest number of valid votes, and thus entitled to be returned as a vote. This also presupposes that it is only after the petitioner has supplied the particulars of the votes in support of his claim that he scored the highest number of valid votes that a respondent will then have a duty to object to any of the particulars of such votes supplied by the petitioner in order to show that the petitioner is not entitled to succeed. With regard to the petitioner's contention that they have incorporated into the petition by reference the spreadsheets and forensic analysis report containing details of the polling units where they allege that the irregularities and practices occurred, it is right that for a document to be properly incorporated as part of pleadings by reference, the document must not only be referred to in the pleadings, but it must also be included as part of the pleadings to be served on the adverse party, so as to enable the adverse party to properly respond to same in its defense. Indeed, in all the cases of EFCC reign, a follow as a Moda Marine Management Associates Incorporated was enemy and Digadia Mwako Supra, which were relied upon by the petitioners. The documents which were incorporated as part of the pleadings by reference were served along with the pleadings of the adverse party. In considering a similar scenario, this court by Ayola, yesterday, as he then was, held in Nigeria Merchant Bank PLC was Ayedu Investment Limited as follows, and I quote, before I party this appeal, it is pertinent to advert to one pleading question raised in this pleading in regard to the principles of the party, pleading that he rely on certain unspecified documents at the trial. The plaintiff contended that such elements made the contents of such document part of the pleading. In this case, the plaintiff in paragraph 30 of the statement of claim pleaded thus: the plaintiff at the trial will rely on all letters and documents between the parties pertaining to this. Although the principle is established that if an agreement in writing is referred to in the pleading, it becomes part of the pleading, and it is open to the court to give the agreement its full legal effect, irrespective of the term used in the pleading to indicate such effect. That proposition of law should not be used to cover such argument as shown above, which lacks specificity. Besides, a report such as Exhibit P22 in this case prepared by a witness for the plaintiff and tendered at the trial by the witness cannot be described as documents between the parties pertaining to the suit. At the appropriate time, when the occasion arises, the true ambit of the proposition of law in such case, such as Bank Genesis versus Beta Limited, ought to be defined, unquote. In the instant case, the spreadsheet and forensic report, which were documents prepared by the petitioner's witnesses, were not served along with the petition on the respondents, but were only listed as documents to be relied upon at trial. I'm not oblivious of the petitioner's argument in relation to paragraph 4, sub 5, sub C of the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022, which provides that the election petition shall be accompanied by, quote, copies or list of every document to be relied on at the hearing of the petition, quote. This provision undoubtedly only relates to front-loading of documents to be relied upon by the petitioner as is evidence during the trial. Contrary to the petitioner's argument, it does not cover incorporation of documents into pleadings by reference. It is also noteworthy that the spreadsheets and forensic reports which the petitioners claim to be incorporated into the petition by reference are actually documents prepared by the petitioner's witnesses. In other words, spreadsheets and forensic reports are not documents which are outside the control of petitioners and which they have obtained by the subpoena. Being the petitioner's own documents, they ought to have served those documents along with petition on the respondents, so as to enable the respondent to counter same by engaging their own experts to appropriately respond to same if they so desire. That indeed is the essence of pleadings, so as to avoid taking the other party issue. Petitioners have also tried to argue that the respondents having joint issues on the general allegations contained in the petition, they are deemed to have understood same. With respect, this is also not a tenable argument in view of the grossly generic allegations made in it. Faced with a similar scenario, this court, by Mungumi Jesse as in Demos, now Jesse, held in Indiaga and another was Omega, as follows, and I quote. The argument of appellant's counsel that the respondents did not adequately traverse the petition is unfounded. The petition itself contained general complaints. There was no effort to pinpoint in the pleadings the various places where corrupt practices, non-voting, use of violence, forgery, rigging in polling units, massive thumbprint of ballot papers, fictitious entry of election results took place. Therefore, there was a general corresponding reply denying the allegations in general terms from the respondents. If the petitioners did not plead particulars, how could the respondents traverse non-existent particulars? The arguments in the appellant's pleadings should have contained details of the allegations and complaints to which the respondents could reply in detail in their own pleadings. The appellants expected the respondents to reply to the various specific allegations contained in the witness statements filed along with the petition. That is not the correct procedure. Those specific allegations should have been in the pleadings. The pleadings must show the facts disputed, while the witnesses will give evidence of these facts. In election petitions, it has been held that there is a need for particulars where required in order to prevent adverse party response. It is not a function of particulars to take the place of necessary affirmations in pleadings, unquote. Indeed, in the presidential election like the one being challenged in this petition, where it was held in 176,846 polling units, 8,809 wards, 774 local government areas, 36 states, and the Federal Capital Territory, it is unimaginable that governments in the petition which merely allege irregularities and/or malpractice without specifying a particular polling units or particular collation centers where the irregularities or malpractices have taken place will be regarded as proper, merely because the respondent has not requested for further particulars. More so when an election petition is by nature a declaratory action, in which the petitioner succeeds only on the strength of his own case and not on the weakness of that of the respondent. Ibusari was Adepoli, Oyetola was Adeleke, and Anazon was Olubo citation. It is in this respect that the petitioner has an obligation to set up a clear, unambiguous, precise, and positive case in his pleadings, since pleadings is the foundation of the party's case, and it is to the pleadings that the parties to litigation, as well as the court, are all bound. See Enam and others. It is in the light of all the foregoing that I find and hold that the motions of the respondents listed above succeed. In consequence, paragraphs 9, 60, 61, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 76, 77, 78, 83, and 99 which are failed to state the specific polling units, collation centers, or the specific places where the irregularities and malpractices are alleged to have occurred, or the figures of votes which are being claimed are grossly vague, imprecise, nebulous, and bereft of material particulars, and have thus failed to meet the requirements of paragraph 4, sub 1, sub T of the Electoral Act 2020. In accordance with paragraph 4, sub 7 of the said schedule, the said paragraph are consequently here as follows. On the first respondent's prayer to strike out paragraphs 57 and 58 of the petition for being inconsistent with paragraphs 65, 67, 70, and 71 of the petition, the essential contention of the first respondent is that while paragraph 57 and 58, whilst in paragraph 57 and 58 the petitioners have alleged that the first respondent failed to comply with the order of inspection granted by the court, petitioners have in paragraph 65, 67, 70, and 71 stated that they will rely on the report of the inspection. Additionally, the first respondent also argued that the first petitioners have alleged that the election was marred by corrupt practices and was not conducted in substantial compliance with the Electoral Act 2022. They have also alleged that they have scored majority of those football cards and should be declared the winner. Relying on some cases which are produced here, the first respondent asked the court to strike out the paragraphs as well as prayers 1 to 4 on the one hand, and prayers 5, sub 1, and sub 2 on the other hand for being inconsistent. Conversely, the petitioner contend that the law allows them to plead conflicting facts insofar as they have claimed alternative relief. They refer to the alternative relief at page 35 to 37 of the petition, and rely on some cases which are reproduced, as well as the ruling on similar objection by the 2019 Presidential Election Court in the previous case. As rightly submitted by the petitioners, the reliefs in this petition, which I have reproduced at the beginning of this ruling, are undoubtedly sought in the alternative. The settled law is that relief can be sought in the alternative, and where sought by a party is at liberty to plead conflicting facts relying on the alternative relief that are sought. In Ala-Igbo, Asasukumawu, and others, this court, our women justice as there was, held that, and I quote, in civil litigation and indeed in election matters, a party can make two seemingly contradictory pleadings, leading to two different heads of claim. That is why a petitioner can claim that the election be annulled for reason of substantial non-compliance and in the same breath claim that he won the election by a majority of the vote. Petitioner may plead the same set of facts to ground alternative relief. Those pleadings are not ipso facto held to be self-contradictory. The court can only grant one relief as the party must decide which relief is best supported by the evidence of a court. See also on this metal construction West Africa Limited was awarded in citation table. In any case, the first respondent, which is the body that conducted the election and to whom the first petitioner's nomination documents were submitted by the second petitioner, admitted in paragraph 4 of the petition where petitioners averred that the first petitioner was duly sponsored by the second petitioner, on whose platform the first petitioner contested. And therefore, no hesitation is countenance in this ground of objection. Now, second category of objections or applications. These are the categories that challenge the competence of the petition on some of its grounds. The second category of the respondent's application that challenge some of the grounds of the petition and all the competence of the petitioner as follows. First, respondent's motion filed on the 19th of April 2023, seeking 1. Order striking out ground 2, paragraphs 33 to 79, and release 5 from 1 and 2 of the petition on transmission of election results for being cut off by issuers. 2. Order striking out paragraphs 20, number 1, 21, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27 on nomination of the second and third respondents for lack of devotion. Second and third respondents' motion filed on the 12th of May 2023 seeking for the following. 1. Order striking out or dismissing the petition for being incompetent. 2. Order striking out grounds 1, 2, and 3 of the petition. Order striking out lists 1, Roman 1 to 3, 2, 3, 4, Roman 1 to 4, 5, Roman 1 and 2 of the petition. The above two motions are predicated on several grounds, which are reproduced here. It is the view of this court that the issue related to ground 1, challenging the qualification of the second respondent to contest the election, the issue related to the competence of ground 2, related to the allegations of corrupt practice and non-compliance with the Electoral Act 2022, and the plea of estoppel in relation thereto, as well as the issue related to competence of the beliefs sought in this petition, are matters on which the parties have joined issues in the main petition, the merits of which will be decided after considering the pleadings and evidence laid in it. It is the settled position of law that a court should not comment on or decide at preliminary stage matters or issues which are supposed to be decided in the substantive case. See one court and others versus Ala-Igbo. Otoni on Onojo James SAN versus INEC citations on the law. Hence, while leaving those issues to be dealt with on the merits of the petition, we shall determine at this stage objections related to the petitioner's local standard, the non-joinder of necessary parties, and the objection to the competence of the petitioner's replies, the respondent's replies, also paragraphs of the petitioner's replies. Lack of local standard of the first petition. The second and third respondents and the fourth respondents in this motion filed, in their motion filed on the 8th of May 2023, also objected to the first petitioner's local standard to bring this petition. The principal contention that the first petitioner was in contravention of section 77 sub 3 of the Electoral Act 2022. They argued that the first petitioner, who was a member of the People's Democratic Party and who was screened as one of its aspirants for the presidential election, only resigned his membership of that party on the 24th of May 2022 to join the second petitioner on the 27th of May 2022. They contended that as at 30th of April 2022, the first petitioner could not have been in the register of members of the second petitioner, which it submitted to the first respondent 30 days before the presidential primary election, as mandated by section 77 sub 3 of the Electoral Act 2022. Since the first petitioner is not in the membership register submitted by the first respondent to the first respondent by the second petitioner, the first petitioner lacks the local standard to challenge the outcome of the presidential election. By contrast, petitioners submitted that the issue of membership of a political party is a domestic affair of a political party concerned. The courts lacks the jurisdiction to details. They rely on the cases that are reproduced. The courts have consistently held in a plethora of cases that the issue of membership of a political party is an internal affair. It is not a justiciable issue, and courts have jurisdiction to details. CNM versus Asukmo, others, Sani and Galadima, and Tubido versus INEC citations on the record, as well as all the cases cited above by the petition. The provision of section 77 sub 3 of the Electoral Act 2022, which only mandates every political party to submit the register of its members 30 days before its party primaries, cannot be invoked by the respondents for the purpose of challenging the first petitioner's membership of the second petitioner. It is only the second petitioner that has the sole prerogative of determining who are its members. And having sponsored the first petitioner as its candidate for the presidential election, the first petitioner has satisfied the requirement of being a member of the second petitioner as provided for in section 131 sub C of the 1999 Constitution. It is not within the rights of the second and third respondents and the fourth respondent to question the first petitioner's membership of the second petitioner. This ground of petition is covered over. Non-joinder of necessary parties. The first respondent in this motion of 19th of April 2023 and the second and third respondents, as well as the fourth respondent, raised the issue of non-joinder of Abubakar Atiku or the People's Democratic Party, who came second in the presidential election as respondents to the petition. The contention of the respondent then is that since by relief 1 Roman 3, 4 Roman 4 the petition, petitioners who came third in the presidential election are seeking to be declared the winners of the election, the petition cannot be effectually and completely determined without the joinder of Abubakar Atiku or the People's Democratic Party, who came second in the election, as respondents to the petition. For that reason, the respondents have contended that this court lacks jurisdiction to declare the petition as constituted. place reliance on JKD and INEC. Warrior Obasanjo, citation on the no position, however, petitioners relied on the cases of Obasanjo and Yar'Adua, Warrior Yusuf, Akoti and INEC, and contended that only statutory respondents provided in Section 133 of the Electoral Act 22 are necessary parties to the petition. Petitioners are not under any obligation to join Abubakar Atiku and the People's Democratic Party. By Section 133 of the Electoral Act 2022, the statutory respondents in an election petition are 1. The person whose election is being complained of, and 2. The Independent National Electoral Commission, which will also be deemed to be defending the petition on behalf of its officers whose conduct is complained of. In the cases of Obasanjo and Yar'Adua and Buhari and Yusuf Supra, cited by the petitioners, the Supreme Court categorically held that only the statutory respondents stated in Section 133 of the Electoral Act are necessary parties, and that losers at an election who are not statutory respondents are not necessary parties to an election. By the import of Section 133 of the Electoral Act 2022, the contest in an election petition is strictly between the petitioner who challenges the outcome of the election, the person who was declared the winner of the election, and the commission that conducted and declared the outcome of the election. This means that every candidate who lost the election and who is desirous of challenging the outcome of the election is expected to file his own petition against the winner of the election, and in so doing is not required to join any other candidate who lost the election like himself. It is in furtherance of this that paragraph 50 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022 requires an election tribunal or court to consolidate two or more petitions which are presented in relation to the same election auditor. As rightly submitted by the petitioners, the case of JKD and INEC cited by the first respondent is clearly not applicable to this case, since the decision in that case is that Maimala Buni was a necessary party caused by the provisions of Section 183 of the 1999 Constitution would have ceased being a governor of Yobe State if the case made out in the petition that he could not combine offices of the governor of Yobe State, acting chairman of the All Progressive Congress is sustained. In this case, Abubakar Atiku, the People's Democratic Party, who were only runners-up in the presidential elections, are not necessarily parties, as they are not statutory respondents to this petition, and the petitioners here have no obligation to join them in this. Again, in Buhari and Obasanjo Supra, relied upon by the respondents, the Supreme Court reconfirmed its decision in Buhari and Yusuf Supra that there is no obligation on the petitioner to make a candidate who lost an election like himself a respondent to his petition. Also, as in this case, Abubakar Atiku and the People's Democratic Party have filed a separate petition on the CAPC 05-2023, which, as mentioned in the earlier part of this court, has consolidated in the petition by paragraph 50 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022. This ground of objection to the competence of the petition is unmeritorious, which is accordingly overruled. On the arguments over the competence of the relief sought in this petition, it is my view that the relief which the court can grant in an election petition as statutory, as provided in Section 136 of 1, sub 2, sub 3 of the Electoral Act 2022. Therefore, the determination of whether the relief sought by the petitioner are grantable and only be made after trial. Challenge to competence of the petitioners applies. The third category of the applications of the respondents seek to strike out the petitioner's replies or some paragraphs of the replies. These are first respondent's motion filed on the 9th of May 2023 seeking 1. Order striking out the petitioner's reply, the first respondent's reply for being incompetent. 2. In the alternative, order striking out paragraphs 15, 16 Roman 1 to 7, 17 to 20, 22, 24, 25, 27 to 32, 34, 36, 37, 38, 40, and 41, petitioners reply for offending the provisions of the first schedule of the Electoral Act. Second and third respondents' motion filed on the 13th of May 2023, seeking for order striking out petitioner's reply of 21st April 2023 for being incompetent. 2. In the alternative, order striking out paragraph 8 to 17, 19 to 32, 34 to 42, petitioner's reply for provisional fact. Fourth respondent's motion filed on the 8th of May 2023 prays for 1. Order striking out paragraphs 15 to 32 of the petitioner's reply, the fourth respondent's reply, as well as the witness statement of the failure to deny the fourth respondent's allegation. 2. Orders striking out paragraphs 5 Roman 1 to 9, 15 Roman 1 to 7, 16 Roman 1 to 7, 17 Roman 1 to 7, 18 Roman 1 A to H, 18 Roman 2 A to E, 18 Roman 3, 5 and 7, A to B, A and B, Roman 8 A and B, Roman 9, Roman 11, 20 to 25, A to D, 26 Roman 1 and 2, 27 to 31 of the petitioners apply, the fourth respondents apply for raising new issues. All the respondents challenge the competence of the petitioners apply to their respective replies or in the alternative paragraphs thereof, which they have variously listed. Their essential contention is that the replies or in the alternative paragraphs thereof have either raised or introduced new facts aimed at substantially altering the grounds and relief to the petition, or a mere addition or a hash of the facts contained in the petition, contrary to the provisions of section 16, paragraph 16, sub 1A and B of the first unit of the Electoral Act. The respondents applied on several judicial authorities, which are in response, the petitioners have argued that they have merely reacted to the fresh/new issues raised in the replies of the respondents, which attempted to justify the grounds of non-qualification of the second and third respondents, as well as the non-compliance by the first one, the Electoral Act 2020. They relied on Silva and INEC, PeterObi versus Ezo-Onka, citation on the record, as opposed to discountenance objection of the respondents and all the personal affairs. Now, paragraph 16, sub 1A of the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022 provides as follows, and I quote, if a person in his reply to the election petition raises new issues or facts in defense of his case, which the petition has not dealt with, the petitioner shall be entitled to file in the registry within 5 days from the receipt of the respondent's reply. The petitioner's reply will answer the new issues of fact. So, however, that A, the petitioner shall not at this stage be entitled to bring in new facts, grounds for prayers tending to amend or add to the contents of the petition filed by the court. By the import of paragraph 16 sub 1A of the first schedule, petitioner may, in filing a reply, respond to allegations of new facts raised in the respondent's reply to the petition, provided he does not in so doing amend or add to the petition. It is instructive to observe that the words used in paragraph 16 1A are, quote, new facts, grounds or prayers tending to amend or add to the contents of the petition, unquote. The word new suggests something which is not there, while the word amend signifies qualification. Add, on the other hand, means to increase. What the provision envisages, therefore, is that the reply of the petitioner must strictly be confined to the new facts raised in the respondent's reply and must not go over that to attempt to amend or add to it. See All Progressive Congress versus People's Democratic Party, Gary and Momako, Adepoju versus Awodu Yileni, and Ikoro versus Usunaso, citations on the record. Indeed, in succinctly explaining the new issue which should attract the reply, the Supreme Court had held Eje Simba versus Oluzubiji as follows, and I quote, a new issue to attract the reply will not be really new in the sense of being brand and fresh. The issue must be really new to the statement of claim, in that it was not existing therein, was therefore brought into existence or introduced for the first time in the statement of defense by the claim. The new issue, in both its contents and materiality, must be further and additional to the statement of claim. Thus, the mere fact that the defendant states his own side of the case does not necessarily make it new, particularly when the plaintiff has told a contrary story in his statement of claim. In such a situation, the case stated by the defendant amounts to joining issue with the plaintiff, and that does not bear the name of a new issue before. A new issue arises where the plaintiff did not avert to or touch the contents of the defendant's arguments in anticipation. The defendant's arguments was introduced with pleadings for the first time and therefore need a novel unquote. A careful examination of the petitioner's petition, the first, the second and third, and the fourth respondents' respective replies, and the replies which the petitioners filed in response thereof, reveals that apart from rehashing what they have already averred in their petition and denying what the respondents have stated in their respective replies, Petitioners also introduce new facts in their replies, in the respondents' replies, which were not contained in the petition. This is in clear contradiction of paragraph 16 of 1A, first schedule to the electoral act. Paragraph 16, 1, 2. The law as encapsulated in paragraph 16(1)(a) of the first schedule to the electoral act quoted above forbids new additions or amendments by a petitioner which are not contained in the petition, because such new additions or amendments will prejudice the respondents and breach the respondents' fundamental right to fair hearing, guaranteed by section 36(5) of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1990. Since the respondents will have no opportunity to respond to those new issues, additions or amendments. See PDP and others, others, Malcolm and another was Al-Makura and other sections. An examination of paragraph 4, Roman 3, Roman 4, and Roman 5, first respondent's reply shows that the paragraph has not raised any new issue contrary to the assertion of the petitioners. In paragraph 15 of their reply, the first respondent's reply to the petition. It's only a response to paragraph 7 and 8 of the petition. But the petitioner's argument in the same paragraph 15 that the first respondent's officials at the polling unit failed to give clear copies of the results of the election from ECHA to the petitioner's agents, as the pin copies given by the petitioner's agents were very faint and unreliable, is a new fact which tends to amend the petition. Paragraph 16, Roman 1, 7, 17, second part of 18, 22, 24 of the respondent's reply are traversed on paragraphs 21 to 27 of the petition. Hence, paragraph 16 of the petitioner's reply, which purport to respond to new issues in paragraphs 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 24 of the first respondent's reply, actually contain new facts, which will amount to amendment of the petition. Also, paragraphs 17, 18, 19, 24, 25, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 34, 35, 36, and 37 of the petitioner's reply, the first respondent's reply are either a rehash of the facts already averred in the petition or contain new facts which will amount to amendment of the petition. In respect of the petitioner's reply to the second and third respondent's reply, the petition, the latter are seeking for an order striking out paragraphs 8 to 42 of the petitioner's reply. However, a careful examination of those paragraphs shows that only paragraph 21 of that reply has raised a new allegation against the first respondent of attempts to manipulate the data uploaded on the back-end server of AWS. The same paragraph 21 of the petitioner's reply to the second and third respondent's reply is hereby. Similarly, petitioners have introduced new facts in paragraphs 16, 17, 18, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 27 of the reply, some of which contain serious allegations the fourth respondent, which the fourth respondents have no opportunity to respond. Being in contravention of paragraph 16 sub 1 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act, those paragraphs are also irreversible. And that is the rulings on the respondents' objections, various objections.
Judgments. After that, Malana brothers now with their own because the petitions are dated. So now we go to the main petition number 3. In bringing this petition, the petitioners who were contestants in the presidential elections held on 26 February 2023 have challenged the declaration and return of second respondent as the winner of the election and sought for the declaration on constitutional reliefs, which I have reproduced in numerous judgments. The petitioners have predicated their petition on the 3 statutory grounds earlier stated. Although in the ruling of this court on objections of the respondents, comparable to the petition replies have been struck out for certain reasons, this court will take into consideration the entire advance in the petition in determining the merit of otherwise for the petition in the interest of justice. At trial, the petitioners opened their case with tendering from the bar several certified copies of electoral and other documents which were objected to by all the respondents, who reserved the reasons for their objection to the state of final address. The said objections were therefore admitted, the said documents were therefore admitted and marked as exhibits without prejudice to the objections of the respondents. The court ordered the respondents to file separate addresses with their objections along with their final addresses. The proof of their petition, the petitioners called 13 witnesses who gave evidence as PW1 to PW13. Of those witnesses, only 3 had their witness statements from oath filed along with the petition, while the other 10 were subpoenaed witnesses whose statements were filed separately after hearing in the petition had commenced. The respondents objected to the competence of the subpoenaed witnesses to give evidence and adopt their addresses and witness statements from oath and reserve the rulings for their objection to the state of final address. Without prejudice to the objection, said witnesses adopted their respective witness statement on oath, after which they were duly cross-examined by all the senior counsel for the respondents. Upon conclusion of the petitioner's case, the first respondent as well as the second and third respondent called one witness each in their defense. The fourth respondent did not call any witness, but opted to rely on the evidence already adduced by the other respondents and that he will step under close examination on behalf of the fourth respondent. At the close of evidence, parties filed and extend their respective final addresses, including separate addresses in support of their various objections which they raised during trial. So we shall now consider the respondents' objections to the competence of some of the petition witnesses and to the documents tendered by them during trial. At the same time, we skip the addresses of counsel and go to the petitions position. So, the resolution of the respondent objection to witnesses of documents contained in page 84 of the judgment. In the first segment of the respondent's objection, all the respondents challenged the competence of PW3, PW4, PW5, PW6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13. And the respondent's essential contention is that the witness statements on both witnesses, on behalf of those witnesses, all the petitioners were not loaded along with the petition, but were only filed during trial, contrary to paragraph 4, sub 5B of the Pay Schedule to the Electoral Act. Section 285 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which limits the time for presenting the election petition, provides as follows. An election petition shall be filed within 21 days after the date of the declaration of the result of the election. In the same vein, Section 132 of 7 of the Electoral Act provides as follows. An election petition shall be filed within 21 days after the date of the declaration of the result of the election. Paragraph 4 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act stipulates the content of an election petition which shall be filed. In particular, paragraph 4.5 of the state schedule is as follows. The election petition shall be accompanied by A list of the witnesses that the petitioner intends to call into petition, B, the statements on behalf of the witnesses, and C, copies or list of every document to rely on at the time of the petition. But subparagraph 6 of that paragraph petition which fails to comply with the above requirement shall not be accepted for filing by the Secretary. Paragraph 14 of 2 of the same first schedule of the Electoral Act then provides as follows. After the expiration of the time limited by A, Section 132 of 7 of this Act for presentation of the election petition, no amendment shall be made. 1. Introducing any of the requirements of paragraph 4.1 contained in the original election petition file, or 2. Effecting substantial and ground for the prayer